This is the Book Deal Podcast Monthly Takeover by your host, Natasha Rai. I'll be bringing you even more debut and seasoned authors as they talk about their path to publication.
The Book Deal Podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters which it's recorded on and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging.
Zaheda Ghani and her family arrived in Australia from Afghanistan as refugees in the 1980s. At 9 years old, Zaheda, also known as Zoe, handwrote her first novel using an HB pencil in a scented diary with a lock and key. The heart of what she wrote back then developed over many years to become Pomegranate and Fig, which was shortlisted for the Richell Prize for emerging writers. Zaheda was also a recipient of the Western Sydney Emerging Writers Fellowship. Zaheda served on the board of Australia for UNHCR, the private sector partner of the UN Refugee Agency, from 2017 to 2021. She is now an ambassador for Australia for UNHCR and has an active interest in UNHCR's humanitarian work. Zaheda lives in Sydney with her husband. Just a note from me about this episode. It took Zaheda and me a while to get our act together in terms of getting a time to record it. And I'm so glad we did because the episode is jam-packed with really, really excellent practical tips for writers, either struggling to find time to write or to understand or figure out how to proceed with their work. And how to set intention. I think the intention part for me really stood out. While you listen to this episode, make sure you bring your notebook and pen to take down all of Zaheda's fabulous tips. Enjoy. Hi, Zaheda Ghani. Welcome to the Book Deal Podcast.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And I'm really, really pleased that we were able to make this work.
Thank you.
So you're here today to talk a little bit about your publication journey and your wonderful novel, Pomegranate and Fig. So I would like to start by inviting you to give me an elevator pitch.
Okay, it's not going to be very polished, but the novel is called Pomegranate and Fig, and I have a copy right here with me. It was published in 2022, so it's been a while. It's actually a story about three people. There's Hannah and her brother Hamid, and basically and a third person called Rahim, who will later become her husband. And essentially, it's based in the 1970s Afghanistan, and it follows their lives and their journey through the Soviet invasion, and then how they flee and what happens. At the heart of it, what I was actually interested in was those scars from the refugee experience that are not communicated through the numbers and the statistics and the imagery in the news. It's actually those scars are not visible. They actually change who people are. And so it's really about the identities of these people and how it evolves as a result of the experiences that they had.
Wow, thank you. I have read it, so I know how beautiful it is, the story, the writing, the themes. And I'm curious about, you take such heavy themes, you take such care with them. How did you approach writing a story like this, or stories, because there's multiple viewpoints?
Sure. Look, at the time, I wasn't thinking about the themes or the heaviness in the way maybe you read them. I think for me, what was important was I needed it to be as historically valid as possible. So that was an important thing. And I wanted to portray the elements of the culture as honestly as I could. And now every family lives within a larger and larger culture, but you also have your own nucleus of culture. But I wanted to capture the important things in terms of the relationships between men and women, the wedding ceremony, the process of actually getting married, and the bonds between family and what's appropriate and what's not. So they're the things that I was more focused on, and consciously so, because I wanted to base it in as much, I was world building, as someone said once to me, like someone does in sci-fi. So I was hoping that the world that I'm building is as honest and authentic as I can make it, based on obviously my own perception of what that looks like. And for that, I watched a lot of videos on YouTube from the periods that I was interested in. Obviously, read a lot, and also harassed my mom and other family members who had been through to try to understand, like, when there is that wedding ceremony, what's appropriate for who to say. This is what I wrote. Is that sound right? And I also worked with an amazing editor, Jane, who helped me to then do some like refinements on, well, in the 70s, if you had a yearbook made of leather, it would have been too expensive for a school. So therefore, this material should change. So she did some of that. So it's not necessarily kind of historical fiction, but it is trying to be honor the experiences and the cultural components and elements of the time.
Yeah. So by focusing on the details and that accuracy, you get this, as you say, world building. You get this real intricate, very detailed view into these people's lives.
Yeah, that was kind of the game plan.
It definitely worked. I mean, as a huge fan of your work, and I love your book, so it definitely worked well for me anyway. So, Zaheda, part of your work is you are an advocate for refugee peoples, and I'm wondering, because one of the things you and I talked about when your book came out was this feeling or danger of becoming a spokesperson, as a lot of writers of colours end up being for communities or ways of lives or families. Have you thought about, because you've had a bit of time now, how you've balanced that, where you can kind of talk about it or advocate through your work, but maybe wanting to take a bit of a back step away from that when talking about your fiction?
Sure. Yeah. So this was interesting for me because I cannot speak for the peoples that are Afghan who have left through either my time or other. And I wanted the book to do kind of to just stand as a novel, and I wanted just to be a novelist to begin with. And as a result of sharing my personal experiences and perspectives, if that helped somebody understand the refugee experience better, then that was really kind of like the icing. And I really wanted that to be my small contribution to the narratives that you referred to. So I think, again, I feel like going back to just being as authentic as possible about my writing process, but also saying this is my experience as Afghan refugee, as my parents left, and how it's different, and just being kind of like myself, I guess, in those conversations, rather than trying to speak on behalf of, and then understanding. And actually, someone did say to me, that they felt like it was a window into how families work in that part of the world and how unfamiliar they were. So it's kind of like, well, maybe now when they see on the news that there's a crisis, they will have a connection to the people that are behind the statistics, and maybe that's what will be an outcome. But it definitely wasn't an awareness or a goal for me to set out to do that. I just set out to write something because I was interested in that story. And again, because it has a personal connection to me, and the refugee story is my story. So the way I kind of tried to navigate that is by just kind of being authentic about where I've come from. And then if people take something from that, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's almost a paradox, isn't it, that in writing a story that's familiar to yours and approaching it with that level of detail that you did, you kind of do both. You kind of distance yourself from the actual story because it's not your story per se, while also showing a family who is under a lot of stress and going through this quite horrific process or ordeal.
Absolutely. And, we have a shared humanity, right? So, and that's kind of where I'm really interested, because regardless of what this family was going through, there's still a family, and there's family, like families are a shared humanity. Fear is a shared humanity. Sense of identity is a shared humanity. So that's kind of where I was interested in that just naturally. And as you said, because it's something that's close to me, it's probably created, that thought maybe in your mind as you read as well, that connection.
Did you set out to write this story? Was that kind of your first idea for a novel?
Well, I have been writing this story literally since I was a kid and it was because I initially started with wanting to write an autobiography. This was in year 7 or 6, and even younger, and just because
quite a short autobiography back then.
Tell me about it, right? And I wrote and then I realized that wasn't interesting, so I wrote it like an iteration of this in primary school or whatever, and it was just an idea. And then I've written a version of it which felt really cardboard, and I hated it. And I thought, this is what happens. You just feel that way. Let's just go get self-published, and get it out there and see what people think. And I couldn't even make myself self-publish it. And then I did the year of the novel, the course with Emily Maguire. And through that, by that point, I had reached a space where I said, I'm either going to write this or I'm going to shut up about it. And through the course, I learned what was it about the first versions that felt so cardboard, and it was kind of really freeing to understand myself and my writing practice, and then really just write what I really wanted to write, but having better techniques and better feedback. And that was kind of the start of the actual writing of this version.
Going into that course, what did you have? Did you have an outline, some scenes? Do you remember?
I had a whole novel.
You had a whole novel. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
But it felt like cardboard, like you said.
I hated it. Yeah. And I was like, this does not feel right. I haven't found, and I think now I feel that it was because the voice wasn't there. It was just something wasn't sitting about it. And the characters, there were too many, and I was just needing to work through and get closer to who I was really interested in the characters themselves. And then once I got that and the voice and then the scenes, I started to rewrite everything through that process.
Yeah. And I want to come back to, you mentioned earlier about a writing process, and I do want to ask you about that. But as we've started talking about your kind of bringing together what you learned through that course and starting to figure out what you needed to do to help your novel come to life, tell me a bit about your publication journey after that. So because I know that you are still in a writing group.
Yes. So going in, I was very lonely, right? And I had not engaged with writers at all. And I had no idea what the publishing journey would be like. And what I wanted to just be a student in this process that I've obsessed about all my life, and just go and learn and hopefully understand if I could have some people that would be in a writing group with me so that I could keep going and learning with them. And so, yes, out of that course, I did, create become part of a writing group that we're still together today. But also within that course, Emily was amazing in that she helped me get to know myself as a writer and kind of dispelled the myth that you have to have these criteria to even call yourself a writer, which I was really shy about even admitting to anyone. So that confidence and the coaching really helped me. And then she kind of suggested to the class, you all should start to get your work out there, and there are some ideas, and start going into some competitions and all of that. And I really took that to heart. So I put myself out there, entered a few competitions. So my publishing journey began with a competition because I entered the Richell Prize. I think I pronounced it. Been a long time since I said that word. And through that prize, I was a shortlist. And as part of the shortlist, Hachette will read your work and they will decide.
That's right. Amazing. Yeah.
And that is how I ended up with Hachette publishing the novel. And through that experience of competitions, it's really amazing. I have to tell you, I used to enter competitions when I was a kid and get little acknowledgements of my work, and it used to feel, and I felt like that period again, because I
for sure
as many things as I can. And I didn't win everything, obviously, but I got into a scholarship with Westwards. They read my work, and this was definitely part of the publishing path, because it kind of happened at the time before I had submitted my work to Hachette, where they teamed me up with an editor, Alison Fraser, and all of that.
Yes. So can I just slow you down a little bit because people get very interested in how competitions work. So you entered the Richell Prize and you were shortlisted.
Yes.
And then Hachette said what? Like you had some time to submit the whole thing? Because I know you don't submit the whole manuscript to the Richell Prize.
That's right.
3 chapters and a breakdown, right?
You got it. I cannot remember exactly what the milestone was in terms of what I had to submit, whether it was the whole thing or how long it took, but there was kind of within that, contract I think there's a clause it's in when you enter the competition, the terms and conditions and all of that, which would stick to my ears. And someone's going to read my work. Wow. So then I submitted there, and then they had a read and obviously had various meetings and things, and then they called and said that they would accept it.
So after you was shortlisted, did you then win the Westward's editorial feedback after that? Do you remember?
I know that it happened before I submitted the full manuscript.
Okay.
But I cannot remember how the sequence worked, because basically I did go a bit nuts and applying different places.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the sequence was. Yeah.
Yes, but I do know that you met up with, or you were paired with Alison Fraser, because she helped me with my novel, and she's an absolute gem. Yes.
Absolutely. And that was, a process that she brought kind of the structural editing to it and me understand and improve the structure. And I wasn't thinking as technically as she does. Obviously, she's such that. So that really helped.
Do you remember what your manuscript or where it was at before she worked on it with you, and what I don't mean the actual details, but what fundamentally changed for you after working with her?
Oh, sure. So I think that there was one of the things was I had a lot of I had more than 3 characters, and those minor characters, I thought they had to be chapters or voices. The characters stayed, but they didn't have to become a voice on their own. They became a voice part of the background. So, for example, there's a scene where they come for there to ask for Hannah's hand. That didn't have to be a point of view by a whole character.
I see. Yes.
Yeah. The other thing I got out of working with her, I got many things, but the other major thing was she printed out the whole thing, and we sat around the table and structured in 3 different ways. Timeline, everything in by one. Like there's 3 characters, the timeline is consistent. It was like what everybody told the full story like this. And so I experimented quite a lot with that structure of what would work with her as well.
That must have been quite a long process. Do you remember because sometimes I know how I felt when I get feedback from an editor, and initially I feel a bit lost or I feel a bit panicked, like I think I can't do this. Did you remember feeling like that, or were you feeling really motivated and inspired by how she was helping you structure that?
Okay, this is such a good. I still remember wondering if I'm skilled enough to do all these things.
Yes.
As described, there's that process of like the fear. And the other part of it is, I don't know immediately if I agree or not. So yes. I will go back into my like writing flow and go, okay, you're safe. Let's try this. And then I will try it out, and then I will live with it for a week and see how I feel, because I don't know it straight away what I think about it. So I would play around with it. And then through that playing around, I would think, oh, I can do this. And that is when I would start to feel really motivated and confident. But it's not when it's like the initial big list of all the things. When you first see all the scribbles work, you're like, I'm never going to get this done. How am I going to get? So it's like, okay, just chunk it down, chapter at a time, page at a time.
Yeah.
Play around with it, see how I go. And then starting to feel, I think that the thing that is consistent was that if someone took the time to read it, the motivation doesn't wane, if that makes sense. Because I'm like this, very hungry and obsessed person. And it's like someone reading it is such an honor. So the motivation doesn't wane. It's the confidence that was different based on editing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's such an important distinction because it's true. It's the confidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when you start getting in the flow, your confidence builds because you think, I can do this.
You got it. Yeah. Because you tinker and you're like, oh, I was able to tinker in the direction of what I sensed she was asking for or what would make sense now. And you'd be like, oh, that made it better. Or, oh, God, that feels cardboard. That's not going to work. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Shara Curlett, a member of the 2025 debut crew and author of Welcome to Miracle, a middle grade fantasy novel released by Scholastic Australia on the 1st of April 2025. The idea for Welcome to Miracle came to me when I asked myself a simple question. What if Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was set on a magical island? What would have happened? What could have happened? And with that one simple spark of an idea, Miracle was born. Welcome to Miracle is about an 11-year-old girl named Juniper Mayfair who is cursed by chaos, or so she has been told. And it is well known that children with chaos may never visit Miracle, the private island that gifts its visitors magic for 24 hours. What others don't realise, however, is that Juniper's chaos comes in the form of a pesky ghost who claims he's not a ghost, named Finnegan Frost. So, when Juniper receives an elusive ticket to Miracle, she believes all her wishes have come true. After all, that's what the island promises. On the island, though, she discovers that nothing is as it seems. Miracle is not bringing wishes to life, but nightmares. Juniper and her new friends must uncover the secrets of Miracle to rid the world of chaos for good. But first, they must survive the island. This fast-paced magical adventure will keep you guessing to the very end, and I really hope that your children and you love reading it. I'd like to say thank you to Madeline, Tina and Natasha for giving me the opportunity to share my debut novel with you. Welcome to Miracle is available from all good bookstores and also through the Scholastic Book Club and Scholastic Book Fairs.
So after that process with Alison, you submitted that version to Hachette.
Yes.
And I remember, because we were talking around that time, it felt like it took a long time after that submission.
Yes. So there are a lot of processes that I did not appreciate in Hachette, in publishing, actually, not Hachette. Within publishing, they have these processes where they're, I guess, discussing the work, understanding what it means for them, how does it fit in their catalog, and they're the things that they were doing internally, which I was waiting for. But because and you're like, been in my shoes, you're kind of really excited but nervous. I was just pretty much holding my writing breath.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a hard part to wait.
It is a very hard part. And I remember at the time as well that you wanted to wait and see, and you didn't want to submit to any other publisher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I don't really want to ask about whether, obviously it was the right decision, but how did you hold on to the patience? Because I know that with the competitions, you were like, yes, I'm going to enter as many as possible.
Yeah.
What helped you kind of hold steady while you were waiting for Hachette?
I think I can't remember now, but I think even with entering competitions, there's a timing thing where some competitions you can't enter if you already submitted somewhere else.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. A lot of them have that rule.
Yeah. Conscious of timing around that as well. And, the year of the novel and all of the learning we did there, part of that was about like being conscious of those things. So I had to do that. I was conscious. I was, I guess, trained in the patience piece already through learning that even competitions, you can't go AWOL and do it. So you have to be conscious of those things. I think I felt a bit like, and this is going to sound cheesy, but it was a bit like if it's meant to happen in this situation, it will.
Mm-hmm.
And I have waited like so long, written this thing for so long. It just didn't feel like I needed to go and shop it around immediately. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Do you remember the moment or the day when they said yes?
Of course I do. I remember being on the phone in my dining area and jumping up and down, going, yes, 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 yes.
It's the best moment, isn't it?
Such an amazing moment. I wish it for everyone that wants to write and wants to publish through a publisher. It's the best feeling. Yeah.
And from memory, how long did it take between that yes to publication date?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. I don't remember. I know it was months and months.
Yeah.
Oh, because wait, COVID happened as well. So my dates were all impacted by COVID too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And there was more work that you did once it was accepted for publication?
Yeah. So there was an edit process with the publishing team as well.
Mm. And so the time of release, because I came to your launch and the Sydney launch, how was all that time? It must have been so heady and so exciting and joyous.
It was heady. And we were talking earlier about what it feels like to just hold a copy in your hand. Okay. I celebrated every little step.
Excellent.
You know, it's like the phone call celebration. This was before that, submit celebration, phone call celebration. And then I had, the book arriving in, its beta way, and then the my copies, and then it was just, I in my whole life, I had never walked into a bookshop, seen a shelf of books and not felt and dreamt that mine would be on it. And here was this dream happening. And I was, ready to kick the bucket, because the bucket list was what I mean.
Yes, I do.
I have to be honest, though, one of the things that I realized when I started to see it around was I did start to feel like wanting to get published was not the same as people actually reading it.
Ah, yes.
Like, oh, yeah. Okay, now that means people will read it. Oh, my God. I had not connected that, that bookshelf dream in a bookshop is the same as people actually going to now read this thing.
Yeah. There's a fear associated with that and a worry.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you managed that?
Let's see. I think the excitement, and I'm just like, even now, I can feel how excited I was, and I still am. I mean, I got that that happened to me, or I made a book. It's still, I think that was probably overshadowing any serious fear of doubt, just more little anxiety.
And I don't know if you did this at the time, but to anyone else who's in the same boat, all of those competition, long listing, short listing, prizes, all of that feedback is something to hold on to as tangible evidence that this is good. This is a high enough standard, right?
Absolutely. And it not only builds that confidence I was talking about earlier. I did have other experiences where I just received feedback in the early phases of the old version of the manuscript. And that feedback is a gift. And like I said, my approach is not to have an opinion about it straight away, but I know that the things that I took on board, even in the old manuscript, were really helpful to make me better as a writer as well.
Completely, yeah. And so now 3 years on, what does kind of your writing life look like?
Sure. I have been very busy until about, I guess, a few months ago, where I decided, okay, the busyness is a constant. And therefore, what are you going to do now? Because novel number 2 is kind of like, I've got a few thousand words there. I know what I want to do with it, but I wasn't getting in the chair, so to speak. And so now I've just gone back to instating my daily writing practice, which is very early in the morning. Even if it's a 15-minute thing, consistently writing. And I recently had a new practice added to it, where I put it in the calendar now, and then because I'm driven by the calendars anyway, it happened more consistently. So that was one thing. And the other thing was started to put in what this week's focus will be, because what I was doing was I was doing only one kind of activity and then drowning or losing a lot of hours and feeling really bad about it. So now it will be this week or this session will be about research. And then I don't feel like I haven't got the full picture of, I'm not getting. This is about writing a net new scene that I do not have. Those ones I will avoid if I let myself go, because my favorite is I wrote something and I'm going to polish the shit out of it.
Yes. Yep. Editing and polishing is my favorite too. Yep.
Yes, because they're so fun for me, at least. So now I'm distributing the days between themes of work, and that's gotten me to move forward a lot faster than I was.
Oh my God, I actually love that. I hadn't even considered setting an intentional focus for the day or the week. Oh, I feel like my entire writing practice is going to change because of that tip. Thank you.
It had a massive impact. I cannot take credit because Emily gave that to me.
That's okay. I'm glad. Pass it around.
Yes. So it's her feedback, and it really helped change the cadence of my writing.
Yeah, because for you, especially with time, you also work full time.
That's right.
So you have to find what works for you in terms of carving out that time.
You got it. Because lunchtimes and after work and evenings, my cognitive load from work is so high, it doesn't really, my brain just doesn't go there. Yeah. And I'll get on the laptop again. But in the mornings, because I wake up quite early, it's just, I've got the meditation and prayer and all of the reflection time. Then I've got my creative time. And then, believe it or not, I'm way more confident and creative in my work day because I've had that time to, of solitude and creativity. And it just sets me up much better for the rest of the day as well.
Yeah. And if you're setting an intention for your creative time, there's also a sense of accomplishment of, I did the thing that I wanted to do today.
Yes. Yes.
And how are you feeling about not so much the manuscript, but this process again? Does it feel different to the first time?
It doesn't, in that I know I can disappear into the scene I'm writing, and how it feels is the same. I think there is I'm not expecting that just because I got published the first time, it will see the light of day the second time. And I'm holding on to that expectation because it's a reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
First one, because I didn't even have anything, I didn't have to control for expectation, or because I know how it feels. It's kind of like, I'm not thinking about that. I've kind of like compartmentalized it because it was about that journey. I feel if I hadn't had that journey, I would still be much more, I guess, it'll be much less of an issue or a question.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important for me to go back to, even if it doesn't get published, who am I writing this for? It's actually, I'm writing it for me. Oh, yeah. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. But Zaheda, like that is a very difficult thing for a lot of writers to do, because once they have their first novel maybe picked up, one of the things I've heard a lot about is disappointment in terms of trying to get your second book out or working on it. So that feels very healthy and refreshing that you're able to do that for yourself, that you're able to say, you know what, I want to write this for me, and I'm taking the expectation of publication out.
Yeah, and I think whenever I've done something creative, the more it's meant to me, the more it's meant to others. And maybe it's not going to work with the second novel. It doesn't matter because it's not like we don't have switches, right, for these things. Even small things that I've written, or I used to design clothes once upon a time, like the things that really resonated were because I was the things that are most authentic to me. So that's kind of where I'm anchoring it in terms of, if I have fun doing it, it was worth it, basically. It doesn't matter what the other stuff is. The other stuff is out of my control.
True. It does take a lot of practice and experience, I think, as well, to be able to say, I can actively not think about that or push that away for now.
Yeah. And what I also mean is, do I still feel the same as I did the first time, which is, I'm going to tell you a story. Okay. Mm-hmm. A story I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. I think it's fun and cool. And then, so I'm thinking of you, but I'm not doing it for you.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. You're doing it for the love of storytelling. You're doing it for the love of the creative flow, and you're doing it for the love of the craft as well.
It's actually the characters, because they're so weird and fun and whatever. And then and the voice of what the right word will, how the right word will land, what's the right word, that kind of feeling of landing the right sentence and saying, oh, that's the right kind of, I guess, feeling I want to convey in this sentence. And then it's those things within the craft, as you
Yeah. Is that always your starting point, or does it feel like that's where you always like to start, with characters?
Good question. I think yes. I think the character is trying to think. Yeah, definitely. Because as I get to know them, then I can get to know what they will do, and then the rest. Yeah, and language. Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting to me because you and one other writer are the only two people I know that start in this point, because that's how I start. I usually start with a character or characters, and I just have to wait. They can tell me what they're going to do and what they're up to. And when you talk to people who write in a different way, or people who don't write, they're like, yeah, but how does that work? Because you're making it up. I'm like, well, sort of, but not really. It just happens.
Isn't that so true? Because I don't know where the things come from, right? You're just typing, thoughts are coming, ideas are coming, and you just type the ideas.
Like a conduit, like you're just
you're
flowing and you're just doing it. Yeah.
You're having fun. You can see them. I can see them in, a small room. Right now, there's like a scene that was just like in my head. There was a small room. She was sitting there. There was a curtain of a certain fabric. And I was like, yeah. And that's not just our imagination doing what it does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you give it enough space and time and all the lovely things that are within our control to help the imagination.
You got it.
Flow. Yeah.
You got it. I was the other day speaking with someone in our writing group actually about how do we get to the end? How do we get to a finished novel? And it's like, some folks like to write the structure and then fill in the
yes.
And I write with scenes will just come and I will just write them, and then I will need to be a reader, come back to it after a while to see if things are happening.
I get it.
It's so amazing how there's such different ways of accessing what's in our imagination and getting it on.
Yeah. And we are coming to the end, so just have a couple of final questions. In terms of, it's kind of the same question, but I'm going to put into two different ways. What have you learned along the way about any of it, whether it's publication or writing? And do you have any tips or top tips for other emerging writers?
Sure. What I have learned, and this is something, from the year of novel that really stuck with me, is there isn't really a criteria for whether you're a writer or not. That kind of wanting to pass a gate or earning it as a right is not a thing. If we're writing because that's where we like to have our creative outlet, then we're a writer. It doesn't matter beyond that. I think that is one of the big lessons that I've still worked hard to keep as well, because it's very easy to fall into all of the other stuff that comes with, and maybe it might hinder me showing up. So
yeah, and lots of emerging writers do that kind of minimizing and that shrinking into self when you can barely utter the words, I'm a writer.
Yes. The tips would be to, I guess, I'm not an expert, but I think it's connected to that point, which is trust yourself. If you love it, then that is where the celebration comes from. Because, that process of, Emily calls it, that she mentioned, she was quoting someone and I cannot remember the details. It was like the image you have of what it should sound like is very different to what ends up when you actually put it on the page. And then the journey is making the two match, it's like, how do I refine this thing I've got on the page to match the vision in my head?
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If you got a paragraph that matches the vision in your head to a level you are happy with, it's a win.
And that's why you love the editing and polishing, because that's literally the work to get the two matching, right? Because your first draft, it's very rare. You might have moments of brilliance, but most of it's not going to match.
Yes.
Oh, I like that a lot. So for your manuscript then, and this is not about you needing to tell me anything more about it if you don't want to, do you have a time frame in mind for when you would like to finish a draft, or is that feeling like too much pressure to think of it like that?
It's definitely a lot of pressure to think of it that way, but I also won't do it if I don't set myself a deadline. So I want to have by the end of the year, if I can, I want to be in a point where I've got what I think is a first draft that has everything in it, but that's a very ambitious goal. But if I set something, I'll get something close. If I set nothing, I'll probably just wander for another few years.
Again, it's that setting of intention that you mentioned earlier. Yes. Well, Zaheda Ghani, thank you so much for your generosity and taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been my absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Book Deal podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the pod so you can receive updates as soon as our new eps drop. And to keep up to date with what the pod is doing, you can also find us on Instagram.